He had just dropped $10 million. To ensure he'd never get a chance at a comeback, his opponent secretly spiked his drinking water. When a beautiful woman handed him the glass, Bond didn't hesitate. He downed it in one go, completely missing the wicked smirk spreading across John's face. It wasn't long before Bond realized something was wrong. His body began to fail him, and the grim reality set in. His drink had been tampered with. Abandoning the high-stakes game, Bond grabbed his glass and bolted for the restroom. He refilled it with tap water and gulped it down, desperate to dilute the toxin, but it was no use. Stumbling out of the building and narrowly dodging speeding cars, he fought to stay upright until he reached his supercar. Bond yanked the door open and slumped into the driver's seat, using every ounce of his remaining consciousness to grab his phone and call HQ. After a quick assessment of his symptoms, the team ordered him to grab the backup defibrillator from the glove box and slap the pads onto his chest. Back at HQ, the monitors showed Bond's heart rate redlining. He had less than 2 minutes to save himself. They told him to grab the blue vial, an antidote to neutralize the toxin, and then hit the red button on the defibrillator. But at the critical moment, no matter how hard Bond mashed the button, nothing happened. His heart rate was flatlining. It was only then he realized the lead wire had snapped. With trembling hands, he tried to plug it back in, but his strength gave out and he collapsed, slipping into unconsciousness. Fortunately, his girlfriend Mary arrived just in time. Seeing the state he was in, she quickly reconnected the wire and slammed the red button. The electric shock jolted Bond back to life. Fearing the worst, Mary insisted on taking him to the hospital, and Bond gave a weak nod of agreement. But he had unfinished business. He had to go back and win that game. When John saw Bond walk back into the casino, he looked like he'd seen a ghost. He never expected the man to walk away from that poisoning. As Bond took his seat, the game reached a fever pitch. The community cards hit the table: ace, 4, 6, and 8. After checking their whole cards, the other players, Paul and Mike, both went all in, ballooning the pot to $6 million. John, sensing blood in the water, raised another $12 million, clearly convinced he had the winning hand. Then, in a move that looked like pure insanity, Bond shoved his entire stack, $40.5 million, into the middle. John re-examined the board and looked at his cards. An ace and a 6. Confident in his hand, he called the all-in, pushing $40 million into the center. The pot hit a staggering $110 million. The room went dead silent. It was time for the reveal. Paul showed a spade flush, a massive hand that explained his $6 million bet. But Mike was even stronger, revealing a full house, 8s over aces. Then came John. He hadn't bet $50 million on a bluff. He flipped his cards to show aces over 6s, a top-tier full house that crushed everyone else. John shot Bond a look of pure contempt, certain the game was over. But when Bond turned over his cards, John froze. Combined with the board, Bond had a straight flush, 4 through 8. It was an unbeatable hand. The result left John speechless, but he didn't make a scene. He simply turned and walked away, his face a mask of cold calculation. Meanwhile, Bond had just cleared a $100 million profit. He tossed the dealer a $500,000 tip like it was pocket change. He wanted to share the news with Mary immediately, but as he stepped out of the hotel, he saw her being forced into a car. It was clearly John's revenge. Bond didn't think twice. He jumped into his Aston Martin and floored it. Despite pushing the car to 200 miles per hour, he couldn't catch them. Suddenly, he saw Mary lying in the middle of the road ahead. He instinctively yanked the steering wheel to avoid her, sending the car into a violent rolling wreck. Bond blacked out on impact. When he came to, he was in a derelict factory, tied up. John was there, and his goal was clear: that $100 million. John was a middleman who laundered money for terrorist organizations. He thought the game was a sure thing, but Bond had ruined everything. Now that he was short $50 million, the terrorists were going to hunt him down. Enraged, John lashed Bond with a heavy rope, the cracks echoing through the warehouse. Bond took the beating in stony silence, eventually taunting John. If he didn't get the password, the terrorists would eventually find him and end him anyway. That hit John right where it hurt, touching on his deepest fears. But then, Mary's screams drifted in from the next room. The smirk vanished from Bond's face. Mary was his breaking point. John saw the shift and grinned. A moment later, gunshots rang out and a terrorist burst into the room. John panicked, never expecting them to show up so soon. Without a word, the gunman fired, dropping John where he stood. The scene shifted. Bond woke up in a wheelchair, stunned to see Mary standing before him, safe and sound. He asked how they'd escaped, but she only gave him a mysterious smile and no explanation. Soon after, the casino's floor manager arrived to inform Bond that the $120 million would be transferred to his name. Without hesitation, Bond transferred the entire sum to Mary. For a while, they lived a blissful, quiet life. Bond even submitted his resignation to HQ so he could travel the world with her. HQ agreed, but with one condition. While Bond had won the money, the agency had provided the buy-in. Without that seed money, he never would have won the $100 million. They wanted the full amount back. Bond agreed. But when he went to the bank to settle the debt, he discovered the account had been wiped clean. Mary had taken everything. He tracked her to a public square and followed her from a distance, only to watch in horror as she handed the money over to a mysterious man. The man was cautious and spotted Bond immediately. He took Mary hostage while his men intercepted Bond. They were in an ancient building constructed over water. During the firefight, a boat engine exploded, causing the entire structure to groan and shift. It was going down. Despite being outnumbered, Bond took them all out. But Mary had been locked in an iron cage, and as the building sank, the cage was dragged underwater. Bond dove in after her. In that moment, he finally realized why the terrorists had let him live. Mary had made a deal to trade the money for his life. Bond desperately hammered at the cage door, trying to get her out, but she had already lost consciousness from lack of oxygen. A moment later, he finally pried the door open, but it was too late. She was gone.